What's up? Julio, Ricardo, Varela, Latino Rebels Radio. It is, the only reason I know it's Tuesday is because I'm looking at calendars. It's the only thing I'm doing is I'm looking at calendars these days, and because I have no concept of the day anymore. But anyway, Latino Rebels Live Radio, Latino Rebels Radio Live is what it is, right? And welcome to Facebook. We're doing this. This is show number 18 in this experiment of trying to create a show during the time of COVID. I just want to thank everyone from my mom, my dad, for being on, for like coming and watching, but also Representative Veronica Escobar, who was like, she's like a legit politician. She was like, hey, I'll come on your show. She was on yesterday. But this one's a special night because people have always like, on Tuesday, May 5th, which is next week, Latino Rebels will have celebrated 9 years. Hey, Hector Gonzalez Rodriguez, how are you? Wait, I'm just going to put the comment of my mom because my mom's on now. Hi, Mom. So she did a comment. So listen, on Tuesday, May 5th is the 9-year anniversary of Latino Rebels. And I really have been trying to connect with everyone. And here's another original Latino Rebel. She's now moved. She's left New York. I find out that she's in South Jersey, Delia, Rivera-Santos. What is up? My OG, Inner Circle, LR in the house. How you doing?
I am doing fabulously well, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show because I have a lot of respect for what you have been doing. And also, you know, I know we both are side hustling constantly, and sometimes you lose touch with people who are super important. You know, synchronicity is always present in my life because I thought about you and then I get a message from you the same day. I was like, okay,
something's up. No, and here's the thing. I'm going to be honest with you. So I invited Christian. I reached out to Marce. I got Tony Diaz. I have another list of like OGs. Like I had Marlena on, but I'm talking about like I had Charlie Vasquez. I'm talking about like the original, like Charlie, Christian, Tony, like OGs. And then I have my list of like, you know, the 8 people that they're like, yeah, well, we'll hang with you for Latino Rebels. What are you doing? Sure, let's just share cheese bait, right?
For people, man.
Right. So we were just like like-minded, and I said, Delia, and then you tagged me, and I was like, yo, I was literally going to invite you this week to be on. So there you are. So listen, we're going to talk a little bit about that early times, but before you do, I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to everyone because I've known you for years as a writer, as a friend, as a coach, chair, like colleague, peer, you know.
No kidding.
Yeah. So can you just share who you are, introduce yourself to everyone?
Hello, everybody. So my name is Delia Rivera-Santos. I was born in Puerto Rico, and my family migrated to the Boogie Down Bronx when I was 5.5. So I grew up bilingual with a very strong sense of my Puerto Rican identity. And my mother was a Black Puerto Rican, my father a white Puerto Rican. So I also was, you know, a person who considered herself multiracial. And from the time I was a kid, I was very interested in helping people who did not have the opportunities to thrive. So because I was terrified of being dumb, I worked really hard before kindergarten so I could arrive ready. Thank you, Mr. Rogers, for teaching me English. And by the time I was 8, I was a literacy tutor to younger kids because they wanted to find something for me to do. And by the time I was 9, I was like, okay, I'm a writer and I want to, you know, study human behavior. And I had a lot of support from my teachers who were like, okay, you should be a psychologist when I was in the 4th grade. And my other teachers like, no, you have to be a doctor. No, you have to be a lawyer. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'll just be a writer because I could, you know, everything I do to see how I can be of service in the world. And I call it constructive selfishness, right? So let me take really good care of my skills.
Right.
So when I'm called upon, I can show up and really help people because there's always an opportunity to help others. And Puerto Ricans, that's a big part of our culture, help everybody all the time. But we need to also remember to take care of ourselves. That's where
you've always been like that. Like since I've known you I think I've known you online, like through the network, like Twitter, like just for 12 years. You've always been that person to be like, take care of yourself, feel proud for yourself, be creative, give to others. And it was this formation of like-minded people that I don't think people really understand, like how Latino Rebels was ever created. It was really just, I literally was like, hey guys, I want to do this. Do you want to help? Like, let's just have fun. I don't know what this is going with. I remember like at the time, everyone had big dreams but it was, you know what it was? It became a place, at least for me and for others, where it was just like it was like an anchor in this time. And it was like 2011, 2012. I remember you and I watched the presidential debate in New York.
In a coffee shop.
A coffee shop. Because I'd done a Univision appearance, and then you're like, hey, I'm around, and let's go watch the president. And we were watching it and we were just like, just like-minded, talking about writing, talking about like representation, talking about taking care of yourself, self-care. And then, like, we drift apart, right? Like, everyone does their thing. I wind up at Futuro. I run into you in Harlem. I was like, oh, my God, you're in Harlem, right? That's right. And then I'm like, okay, you're not even in Harlem. You're not even in New York anymore. You're in South Jersey. What are you doing? Tell people what you're doing, because it's crazy what you're doing now. Like, in a good way. Like, a good crazy.
Okay, man, because, like, I'm a totally groovy person all the time. But I'm also really nerdy. I love to study. I love to read. My number one character strength is love of learning. My number two character strength is spirituality. I see God in all of my actions. I see God in every inspiration I have in my life. And I am finishing up a master's in applied positive psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. The graduation will be virtual in May, so you can come. I don't know how many people I'm allowed to invite. But the focus of this major is to teach people how to best use their abilities, their strengths, and to focus on what we do well, do more of it, find more ways of enjoying life, finding meaningful relationships and meaning in your work. And this means that instead of always focusing on what you don't do well and your liabilities, which unfortunately traditional psychology really focused on leading with your liabilities, right?
Yeah.
So our focus is teaching people to lead with your strengths and to find ways to take care of yourself no matter what your context is. And before I started the program, I said, I'm really interested in healthcare as well as helping social workers and teachers, because my focus is really how can we provide care for caretakers. And I said, I'm sure God will provide an opportunity for me to work with healthcare workers. That's what I said in September.
Jesus. And it's like, boom. So that's what are you doing that as well as studying? You're actually, is this part, like this pandemic, you're doing things?
So what I'm doing now is I'm attempting, because it's very convoluted mess right now, trying to contact nurses and home health aides. So I'm trying to set up some monthly workshops, wellness workshops virtually for the people providing direct services, especially in hospitals and home health aides. As you may know, home health aides tend to have a very low salary. They have a lower literacy rate. They tend to be a little bit timid about asking for what they need. And a lot of them are women who have grown up as caretakers. So, they've been caretaking since they were children, immigrate to the United States, become home health aides, where not only do they do what is contracted, right, what's in their contract to remind patients to take their medication or bathe the patient or, serve them a meal, but they clean their houses and do the laundry and run errands.
Yeah.
Because these women are just very loving, empathetic people who are taking over as if they were relatives. So they're going way beyond what they're required to do. And some of the, home health aides that I worked with before also visited their clients on their days off.
Right.
because these clients had, Alzheimer's or whatever difficult, challenging illnesses, and the family members weren't visiting, so they would go.
That's happened to my, like, it's funny you say that because my grandfather in Riverdale, and I'm sure my mom's watching, like, the home health aides became sort of like extended family. And it was like, they were mostly Haitian. They were, this is what they did, just unsung heroes. So I'm imagining, right, that you're trying to connect during this time because this is an untold story of what this sort of connection that people are trying to put to try to help care. So have you had any success in that? Or you try because I'm not, now you got me like sucked in because you usually do this. You start being like, Julio, now I have a story for you. And sit back and let me share some wisdom. And everyone in the group would be like, yep, Delia's like, here she goes. She's like wicked smart. She's my friend.
Oh, she's wicked smart.
So,
I do have a connection because I did work with home health aides, teaching them English as a second language. And, throughout my teaching, and I've mainly worked with adult students, I've always incorporated wellness, meditation, I did nutrition, yoga. I took them for walks and took them grocery shopping. And my job in Harlem, they even let me sneak in a walk. So I used to make them lunch. So my students, I would say, we're going to do a writing workshop together and we're going to meditate and then we're going to have lunch. And I would make them salad and cook stuff on the walk. And people in the hallway were like, what is she doing in there? Oh, she's doing belly dancing with the students. And now I think she's cooking. Because I think one of the most important things as a direct service provider, whether you're a teacher, home health aide, nurse, or doctor, is to show people that they are loved, that they deserve love, that their lives are as essential as any work that they do. Mm. And I do have the connection with home health aides because I have a Facebook page for former students. So there's a group there. They're mainly Spanish speaking. Mm-hmm. So I'm setting up a page just for them. And I'm going to be doing a monthly conference call meeting with them to just ask them an important question. What do you need? These are people who are not used to hearing that question. They don't know how to answer the question. Yeah. And I used to say it in class. They were like, ¿Y qué quiere decir eso? Right? They had no idea. Like, what do you mean? What do I need?
No one's asked me.
No one's asked me. So I'm working on teaching people to know that caring for others does not mean you become invisible. We have to have bidirectional relationships, accept help and give help, not just always, what can I do for you? Because there's a lot of love among these health care aides. They really do care a lot, but they don't know when to stop giving and when to start asking for help. So I really want to change that conversation.
So you're seeing that need. Obviously, you're seeing that need. First of all, like, of course you're gonna do a positive. Like, why would I? Like, you tell me what you're saying, I'd be like, yeah, okay, now that I know Delia, of course she's going to do like positives, like she's going to set this up and this is what you do. So, which I find fascinating because knowing your journey as a writer and as a cultural commentator and seriously, if people are watching this, Delia wrote some of the best pieces for Latino Rebels back in the day that all you got to do is Google, search her name. Some really good pieces that I think were just like literary gems that I told you that. It's like these things could get published in the New Yorker, but like it's like they don't know how to deal with someone like you in the New Yorker. It's like, what are you doing? But the point being is it's like, are you seeing that need like just right now? Where are you studying this within the context of COVID and what are the untold stories of this community then that people, because I haven't heard, people are talking about nurses and doctors, right, but home health aides and, nursing homes are like, oh, nursing homes are bad or whatever. So what are the stories, like, what are you hearing that has inspired you to do this?
Well, what inspires me to do this is that you have vulnerable populations, the elderly, and also home health aides take care of people who are quadriplegics or have brain damage who might be younger. And what's different between a home health aide and someone working in a nursing home is the isolation, right? So they don't even have a coworker to discuss their feelings in the middle of the day. They can't have like these touch points of saying, oh, you know what, I'm beat.
Yeah.
They are alone with the patient. And I had students who would tell me when I was teaching ESL to home health aides, they would tell me, yeah, you know, the Alzheimer's patient hit me in the face today. And, you know, it's really tough because he was cursing at me. And these are behaviors of that, you know, illness. It's not anything personal. But when I heard the response of these young women who were like, but I love my client anyway, because I know that he can't control behavior, so I don't take it personally, but sometimes it physically hurts to be hit by a man, you know, a male.
Yeah.
And when I would ask things like, so are you able to discuss this with anyone? Well, I'm afraid to because I might lose the hours. So I can't. And they would tell me, but I think a man would be better off taking care of a big man who's got, you know, Alzheimer's. So there's a lot of stories where people don't have the self-efficacy to use. I mean, they have self-efficacy to take care of themselves, their families, and to immigrate and do very complex things like that. But the self-efficacy within the workplace is more complex because they're afraid of losing hours. They're afraid of losing income. So they put up with a lot of unacceptable behavior. And I just want to provide an opportunity for them to share what's going on with them and also to find a place where they can say, you know, I really need to talk to somebody about my depression. I need to talk to somebody about my anxiety.
Yeah.
Because they are going into these households and, you know, they don't know who's sick in the family, who else is interacting there. So they're taking these big risks for very low income and unreliable hours in some instances. So I think it's that group that is often extremely overworked and extremely underpaid and tends to be immigrants.
Right. And now here we are in a, you know, global crisis where I'm sure there's so many untold stories. I'm going to ask, you know, since you are one of my positive, you know, accept the moment friends, you know, lead with love and wisdom, which is always, you know, that's, you know, people are like, well, that's a philosophy of Latino Rebels. They're like, really? I was like, yes. Like, seriously, anyone that really understands Latino Rebels knows that we're all about the community. That people that I don't really care anymore, you know, people who don't understand us, it's like, we still love you. But what do you tell people now, just as a general, like, because there is a lot of isolation now, and you know, solitude to me, having been through my mental health challenges with my clinical depression, I'm almost welcoming solitude now because I've learned to cope with it, right? But I can understand that not everyone in the world knows how to cope with it, especially if you've never been in a situation where you're isolated, or you know you lost your job, or you're in a situation now where it's like, what is going on? What do you tell people? What do you tell people like who are feeling that anxiety? Or my thing is, I know no advice will ever like make you, but at least like, how do you start getting that journey? Like, how do you go through that, or what do you tell people?
Well, the essentiality of well-being cannot be understated. Everything comes from what we have to give, right? We have to give from the overflow. If we're not doing enough self-care and trying to help others, we're going to burn out. We're going to get depressed. And there's a big difference between isolation and spending time in solitude. And to understand the difference, also it's the personality, right? If you're an extrovert, spending time alone might freak you out, right? It might be if you're an introvert, and I'm an introvert, so I can spend 10 hours reading. And then, but
you've always been like that, and like I've always, like, even with my when I struggled with my demons, because I'm very like da 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 da. It was like, what the fuck, right? So explain that, because I think that's a really interesting, and especially now in this day and age where there is a difference between isolation and solitude, and finding peace in moments where you're in a presence with yourself. How do you get through that for someone who's done it for so long? You know what I mean? You know how to do this. You feel comfortable.
There's a balance. You know, isolation means that I'm not connecting as much as I need to connect with others. Solitude means that I'm spending time alone, cultivating activities that are for oneself and no one else, right? So if you're in solitude, you could be reading, you could be dancing with music in your house, you could be writing in your journal, you could be doing some prayer, meditation, stretching, exercising, watching some positive.
And that's all good, right? That's the point where it's like, because I think one of the things that I struggled when I was like dealing with what I was dealing with was, oh, I'm by myself. Oh, I need to be with people. Like, why am I, I'm alone. I'm not, I wasn't happy. I wasn't at peace with myself being alone with myself. And I think now I've learned how to cope with that. And even during this time, you think like, oh shit, is it coming back? Are they coming back? And I wake up and I'm like, oh no, they're not coming back. I know how to do this. Wow, like I'm happy with myself.
Finding the balance, right?
I'm good. I can be with myself, and I enjoy being with myself. So I listen to a lot of music. I cook. You know what I mean? So I think like, is that something like, you know what I mean? Like I'm just trying to think.
The other thing I would like to add before I lose the train of thought is that it's important to pay attention to what you're ingesting, right? Words are nutrition or poison for your brain. You can't watch news all day. You can't watch COVID news all day. You
Amen.
Can't argue with the TV. And if you know there are politicians who are not mentally well and saying irrational things, there's no point in continuing to watch. So
I wonder who you're talking about, but we'll just continue.
I don't name names. So this is really a time for people to work together, because we want to prevent these horrible situations like the suicide of the emergency room doctor in New York Presbyterian Hospital, whose name escapes me right now. I think it was Breen, Dr. Breen. We need to open up possibilities of people who are caretakers going for help and saying, I feel like I'm on the edge. Yeah. People don't have permission in those environments to be imperfect, to say, what?
Right, you're a hero. Right, it's like you have to save lives. It's like you get glorified when, in fact, my mom, I grew up. My mom's a New York City nurse, or I've seen that world. Like I know that world, and that world is, it's they don't want to be here. They want to, they're just humans. Right?
They want to do their work.
Right.
But the difference is that now we have nurses working as if they were in a war zone, right? There's the number of casualties is very fast for them to process, faster than ever in their careers. A pandemic that we haven't, faced before. So this is like 9/11 plus a lot more stress. And the introvert and extrovert personalities will handle this very differently. The introvert will say, oh, okay, so I'll do more reading, more writing. And, one recommendation I have for extroverts is to make video calls. Or
do live streaming with friends. Like, this is just an excuse to talk to you. Like, it's just a show. It's a show, but it's a live stream. So I'm actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
You're doing your work and your play at the same time. And, no matter what's going on in the world, we have to say, how can I have a positive psychology mindset? And that means I'm going to find the lesson in any experience, no matter how painful and difficult, and let me find a useful thing to do for others as well as myself. And if people are interested in learning about how to foster post-traumatic growth, which means you go through an adverse experience and come out stronger, read Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist who was in a concentration camp, and he spent his time there cheering people up. Wow. Helping others find meaning in their life, and basically saying, if we have an hour of life, let's do something important with it, like making someone else feel better. So this is a time for people to put aside politics.
Yeah.
Say, we all need to ensure that our caretakers can survive the COVID, not because they die of COVID, but
Yeah.
because they die of suicide or just, heartbreak, right?
Yeah.
Nervous breakdowns, heart attacks, all these other stress related situations that come up. And to know that those people, when we go through a door and a lot of people going through that door, no one says, oh, wait, somebody's holding the door.
Yeah.
We have to remember that there are invisible people holding the door so you can go through, and they're called nurses, doctors, home health aides, teachers. We have a high rate of teachers in New York City who've died from COVID.
I know.
So teachers who are teaching 100 or more students per day in their different sections, we are not doing enough. And this is a very important time to share positive information on social media, because this is where everybody's eyes are.
Yeah.
So it's important to share accurate and helpful information and say, how can I be of service to others today?
That's the question. I mean, that's, people think it's like a cheesy, like, I think the moment you start asking yourself that question, and to be honest with you, for the skeptics, it takes a while to ingrain that. It's like, how can I be of service? How can I help people? But if you continue to do it as a habit, then you get Delia Rivera-Santos, who I'm just really glad that we connected tonight. And I want to know about your virtual graduation, and I'm sure we'll reconnect again. You'll keep me posted, but thank you. Thank you so much. Like,
love you.
I love you too. I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Bye. That was Delia Rivera-Santos. I think she was the best way to describe Delia is the queen of Latino Rebels at the time. When this crazy idea came up, and it was a crazy idea, guys. If it actually happened about 9 years ago, around this time when we launched LatinoRebels.com. We launched it on May 5th, so it's going to be next Tuesday. I went in it by myself, and I said, who do I know online? People that I've been reading or connecting on Twitter. And there was a big community of people who were very like-minded. And I just, we developed an online friendship, a small group of us. Mostly, we had similar backgrounds, whether we were from the East Coast or from Chicago or, from the West Coast. We were just kind of like, let's do something, anyone want to help me? And they did. And that's what Delia was about. And, that's a perfect example of someone who, when we were creating in 2011, 2012, 2013, she was coming up with story ideas. We were talking about, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. Really involved. It was such a beautiful experience, the collaboration that was from that original group, that I'm thinking a lot about that during this time of COVID, right? Appreciating, that crazy idea and where it is 9 years from now. And that's why while I do this live show, and, we had Representative Escobar on Monday, and we had, Ile last week, and we had Maria Hinojosa, and we had Hooray for the Riff Raff. I'm also trying to bring my friends back on, Odelia, Charlie Vasquez, Christian Enriquez, Marlena, Charisse, Tony Diaz, and others, and we're going to keep bringing them on, right? So I really appreciate, we're trying to mix it up a little bit. I really appreciate all you guys that are listening. I'm starting to see some regulars, besides my mom, who is a nurse, and I think just thinking about what Delia said just reminded me a lot about the home health aides that helped my late grandfather, and how they were just doing it to do it. And you have to find out if they're doing okay. And I do think about those people now who are taking care of people who might not have COVID, who are isolated or doubly isolated right now. There's a lot of untold stories, a lot of untold angles that are happening from this pandemic that we still don't know where this is going. So I just thought Delia adding what she did and just was amazing. Anyway, tomorrow night we will have Melina Bobadilla, actor. She was in Orange and the New Black. She's also in The New America, which is on Apple TV. She was a former co-host of Tamarindo podcast, which that's where I knew her from. She will be on tomorrow. Really appreciate this. This is show 18. So by Thursday, we're going to have 20 of these shows in the can, as they say. But anyway, a lot of love. Thank you guys for all the comments. We'll be back tomorrow night with Melina. And spread the word. Share this. Come back tomorrow. Appreciate it. Stay safe, everyone. Peace.